Hare Krishna, thank you for joining this morning. Srimad Bhagavatam class and attentive japa. We're carrying on with the theme of Kashyap Muni and Diti. So today we're talking about the fact that Diti is now pregnant and she's going to give birth to two unruly sons. So Diti was actually reluctant to give birth to her babies, and it's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that she waited for 100 years so that at least she could save the demigods from the disturbance for that period. Then it says that by the force of pregnancy of Diti, the light of the sun and moon was impaired in all the planets, and the demigods of various planets, being disturbed by that force, asked the creator of the universe, Brahma, so what is this expansion of darkness in all directions? And Sri Prabhupada mentioned that because of complete darkness throughout the universe, the regular activities and engagements of all the different planets were suspended. Brahmaji was requested to explain the incident. Why was the pregnancy of Diti causing such anxieties all over the universe? So very powerful children there, but in the wrong way. So then it mentions that Shri Maitreya said, because it's still a conversation between Maitreya Muni and Vidur, that's the original conversation. Thus Lord Brahma, who is understood by transcendental vibration, tried to satisfy the demigods, being pleased with their words of prayer. So Brahma could understand the misdeeds of Diti, and therefore he smiled at the whole situation. He replied to the demigods present there in words they could understand. So let's do a quick prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lamyate Grim Yad Kirpatam Mandeshi Gurudi Dharanam Paramananda Madhvam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram Hariyom Tassat Narayam Naskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Uduriyet Nasta Presha Babdareshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhakti Nisthaki. Hare Krishna. So Lord Brahma said, so now Lord Brahma is explaining that how this incident has come about, and he starts from the beginning. He says, my four sons Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan and Sanat Kumar, the four Kumaras who were born from my mind, are your predecessors. Sometimes they travel throughout the material and spiritual skies without any definite desire. So they're not traveling for their personal desires. So when we speak of desire, we refer to desire for material sense gratification. But saintly person like Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan and Sanat Kumar have no material desire. But sometimes they travel all over the universe out of their own accord to preach devotional service. So after this traveling all over the universes, they also entered into the spiritual sky, for they were freed from all material contamination. In the spiritual sky, there are spiritual planets known as Vaikunthas, which are the residents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His pure devotees, and are worshipped by the residents of all the material planets. So the four Kumaras go to Vaikuntha Lok. The material world is full of cares and anxieties in any of the planets, beginning from the highest down to the lowest, the Patal, like Patal Lok. Every living creature must be full of cares and anxieties, because in the material planets one cannot live eternally. The living entities, however, are actually eternal. They want an eternal home and eternal residence, but because of accepting a temporal abode in the material world, they are naturally full of anxiety. In the spiritual sky, the planets are called Vaikuntha, because the residents of these planets are free from all anxieties. For them, there is no question of birth, death, old age and disease, so they don't have any problems with these four things, and therefore they are not anxious. On the other hand, the residents of material planets are always afraid of birth, death especially disease and old age, and therefore they are full of anxieties. And then we're talking about as the title of this class mentions, description of kingdom of God. So we're talking about the description of Vaikuntha planets. Now, when the saints go there, the four Kumaras go to the Vaikuntha planets, they noticed in the Vaikuntha planets all the residents are similar in form to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They all engage in devotional service to the Lord without desire for sense gratification. So all the residents there, they got forearms, bluish complexion, and they're very beautiful, just like Narayan. The residents and the form of living in Vaikuntha are described in this verse. The residents are like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. In the Vaikuntha planets, Krishna's plenary feature as four-headed Narayan is the predominating deity, and the residents of Vaikuntha Lok are also four-handed, just contrary to our conception here in the material world. Nowhere in the material world do we find a human being with four hands. In Vaikuntha Lok there is no occupation, but only the service of the Lord. And this service is not rendered with a purpose, although every service has a particular result. The devotees never aspire for the fulfillment of their own desires. Their desires are fulfilled by rendering this transcendental loving service to the Lord. So this is our nature, that it's our mind, our own desires. It's our own desires that have brought us to this material world, and we seem to be we seem to have this problem. This is our desires that cause all our problems, our expectations, so many things we want that causes anxiety. So, like we have mentioned before, we can't stop desires, but we can bypass them. We can make our desires for Krishna rather than for ourselves, and we will still get benefit from that. We will get happiness from that. We will get peace from that. We will get satisfaction from that. But we think now, why should we do it for somebody else? We want to do things for our own purpose, but then they come with the anxiety as well. In the Vaikuntha planets is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the original person and who can be understood through the Vedic literature. He is full of the uncontaminated mode of goodness, with no place for passion or ignorance. He contributes religious progress for the devotees. Now, the kingdom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual sky cannot be understood by any process other than hearing from the description of the Vedas. So we can't even imagine what's going on there. Only so we have to check the scriptures for the description, because we can't go there ourselves as in this body, and it's beyond our imagination. So we have to check. No one can go see it. In this material world also, one who is unable to pay to go to a far distant place by motorized conveyance can only understand about the place from authentic books. Similarly, the Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky are beyond this material sky. Now, in the material world, there are three modes of material qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. But in the spiritual world, there is no trace of the modes of passion and ignorance. There is only the mode of goodness, which is uncontaminated by any tinge of ignorance or passion, so which makes it pure goodness, obviously. In the material world, even if a person is completely in goodness, he is sometimes subject to be polluted by tinges of the modes of ignorance and passion. But in the Vaikuntha world, the spiritual sky, only the mode of goodness in its pure form exists. So there's pure goodness there in the spiritual sky. The Lord and his devotees reside in the Vaikuntha planets, and they are of the same transcendental quality, namely Shuddha Sattva, the mode of pure goodness. So everything is in the mode of pure goodness there. In those Vaikuntha planets, there are many forests which are very auspicious. In those forests, the trees are desire trees, and in all seasons they are filled with flowers and fruits, because everything in the Vaikuntha planets is spiritual and personal. In the Vaikuntha planets, the inhabitants fly in the airplanes accompanied by their wives and consorts, and eternally sing of the character and activities of the Lord, which are always devoid of all inauspicious qualities. While singing the glories of the Lord, they deride even the presence of the blossoming Madhavi flowers, which are fragrant and laden with honey. So it appears from this verse that the Vaikuntha planets are full of opulence. There are airplanes in which the inhabitants travel in the spiritual sky with their sweethearts. There is a breeze carrying the fragrance of blossoming flowers, and this breeze is so nice that it also carries the honey of the flowers. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha, however, are so interested in glorifying the Lord that they don't like the disturbance of such nice breeze while they are chanting the Lord's glories. So this is how much they are focused in serving the Lord, that anything else, any opulence, any liberation, any kind of other knowledge or sense gratification, they have no interest in them. It's total bhakti. In other words, they are pure devotees. They consider glorification of the Lord more important than their own sense gratification. In the Vaikuntha planets, there is no question of sense gratification. To smell the fragrance of a blossoming flower is certainly very nice, but it is simply for sense gratification. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha give first preference to the service of the Lord, not their own sense gratification. Serving the Lord in transcendental love yields such transcendental pleasure that in comparison, sense gratification is counted as insignificant. Now, so 4 Kumaras are there. They've seen the Vaikuntha Lok. They have observed everything, and they are really satisfied with what they have seen. And now they are here for a purpose. They want to go see Lord Narayan. So they go to the doors. There's a set of doors they have to go through, and they're going there to see Lord Narayan. They get his darshan. Now they're here. Thus the great sages Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan and Sanat Kumar, upon reaching the above mentioned Vaikuntha in the spiritual world by dint of the mystic yoga performance, perceived unprecedented happiness. They found that the spiritual sky was illuminated by highly decorated airplanes piloted by the best devotees of Vaikuntha and was predominated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So by the dint of perfection in yoga, one can become lighter than the lightest and heavier than the heaviest. One can go wherever he likes and can achieve opulences as he likes. So it's mentioned there is 8 such perfections. The rishis, the 4 Kumaras, reached Vaikuntha by becoming lighter than the lightest. This is how they travelled. And thus passing over the space of the material world. Modern mechanical space vehicles are unsuccessful because they cannot go to the highest region of the material creation, and they certainly cannot enter the spiritual sky. But the perfection of the yoga system, one not only can travel through material space, but can surpass material space and enter the spiritual sky. We learn this fact also from an incident concerning Durvasa Muni and Maharaja Ambrish. It is understood that in 1 year Durvasa Muni travelled everywhere and went into the spiritual sky to meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan. So by present standards, scientists calculate that if one could travel at the speed of light, it would take 40,000 years. So 40,000 light years to reach the highest planet of this material world. But the yoga system can carry one without limitation or difficulty. This transcendental happiness exhibited in the spiritual world and all of the spiritual manifestations, they are made possible by the influence of Yoga Maya, the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is all very inconceivable to us, but we have to go by what Srimad Bhagavatam says. We have to trust, have faith in the scriptures. So after passing through the 6 entrances of Vaikuntha Puri, the Lord's residence, without feeling astonishment at all decorations, they saw at the 7th gate 2 shining beings of the same age, armed with, so they were obviously twins, armed with maces and adorned with most valuable jewelry. Excuse me. Earrings, diamonds, helmets, garments, etc. The sages were so eager to see the Lord within Vaikuntha Puri that they didn't care to see the transcendental decorations of the 6 gates, which they passed by one after another. But at the 7th door, they found 2 doormen of the same age. The significance of the doormen being of the same age is that in the Vaikuntha planets there is no old age. Okay, so that is the reason given here. So one cannot distinguish who is older than whom. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha are decorated like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and so they have Shankh, Chakra, Gada and Padam, conch, wheel, club and lotus in the 4 hands. The 2 doormen were garlanded with fresh flowers which attracted intoxicated bees and which were placed around their necks and between their 4 blue arms. From their arched eyebrows, discontented nostrils and reddish eyes, they appeared somewhat agitated. Their garlands attracted swarms of bees because they were garlands of fresh flowers. In the Vaikuntha world, everything is fresh, new and transcendental. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha have bodies of bluish color and 4 hands like Narayan, as we have mentioned. Right. So the great sages, headed by Sanak, had open doors everywhere. They had no idea of ours and theirs. With open minds, they entered the 7th door after their own will. Just as they had passed through the 6th of the doors, which were made of gold and diamonds. Now, the great sages, the 4 Kumaras, although very old in years, maintained themselves eternally as small children. They were not at all duplicitous, and they entered the doors exactly as little children enter places without any idea of what is to trespass. So they behave like children in that respect. That is a child's nature. A child can enter any place and no one checks him. Indeed, a child is generally welcome in his attempts to go places. But if it is so happens that a child is checked from entering a door, he naturally becomes very sorry and angry. That is the nature of a child, Srila Prabhupada mentions. Now, in this case, the same thing happened. The childlike saintly personalities entered all the 6 doors of the palace, and no one checked them. Therefore, when they attempted to enter the 7th door and were forbidden by the doormen, who checked them with their sticks, they naturally became very angry and sorrowful. An ordinary child would cry, but because these were not ordinary children, they immediately made preparations to punish the doormen, for the doormen had committed a great offense. Even to this day, a saintly person is never checked from entering anyone's door in India, Srila Prabhupada mentions. Now, the 4 boy sages who had nothing to cover their bodies but the atmosphere looked only 5 years old, even though they were the oldest of all living creatures and had realized the truth of the self. But when the porters, who had happened to possess a disposition quite unpalatable to the Lord, saw the sages, they blocked their way with their staffs, despising their glories, and although the sages didn't deserve such treatment at their hands. So the 4 sages were the firstborn son of Brahma. Therefore, all other living entities, including Lord Shiva, are born later and are therefore younger than the 4 Kumaras. Although they looked like 5 years old boys, travelled naked, and Kumaras were older than all other living creatures and had realized the truth of the self. Such saints were not to be forbidden to enter the kingdom of Vaikuntha. But by chance the doorman objected to their entrance. This was not fitting. The Lord is always anxious to serve sages like the Kumaras, but in spite of knowing this fact, the doorman astonishingly and outrageously prohibited them from entering, and that caused a lot of problems, as we'll see later on. We're going to continue this next week as well to see what happened when they were stopped. So I just want to welcome you all, my father-in-law ji, Harini Mataji, Rukmani Mataji, Jai Prabhu, Madhav Shyam Sundar Prabhuji, Parveen Mataji, Sarveshya Mataji, and Sopan Prabhu. Thank you all for joining, and we'd love to hear your views on this. What can we learn? What do we notice from this katha? Um, Maybe start with Rukumani Mataji. Would you like to start? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare.
Yeah, Prabhuji, very beautiful class, and to hear the Sanat Kumara looking a very young child, but they were not actually child. They were not children. They were real sages. Nobody can recognize them. And by that, only outlooking the chokidar of the Vaikunta didn't recognize them, and they just insulted them. And unfortunately, they both got the curse from these little Sanat Kumaras. Very interesting, Prabhuji, and the description of the spiritual world. And there is no death, disease, no desire, sense of gratification. Impossible for us. Prabhuji, this is a very lovely class of um, the spiritual world beyond the imagination, and very interesting, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, it's I think how is it managed? Obviously, there's a method to everything. How is it managed? Everybody looks the same. Everybody's same age, and everybody's serving without any personal desires, and nobody ages, and because this is like totally opposite, because we are a reflection of the spiritual world. So it's a total opposite here. So we can't even imagine how would that work. How does it all work, that people are just getting on with it and just serving day and night, and I mean, everybody looking the same. When they're looking at each other, it's like looking in the mirror. So how does that work? It's just amazing. So anyway, thank you so much, Mataji. Harini Mataji's had to go. That's fine. Jai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, we find out from this chapter the origin of the two demon sons of Diti. I think we'll come on probably next week. But they were actually Jay and Vijay, the two women you just mentioned from the spiritual, and it was because of curse on them that they had to come back down into the material world. So the breakdown of this chapter is first we have the problems created due to the pregnancy of Diti. Then we have a description of the Vaikunta, and then cursing of Jay and Vijay. I think we'll come on to that next week. Then the Lord will appear. So just summarize a few points from the first two. So it's the embryo in the womb of Diti was causing darkness throughout the universe. The light from the sun and moon were impaired in all planets. The demigods of the various planets being disturbed went to Brahma to find out what was happening. So the darkness was causing the demigods to be in a miserable condition, as all their work had been suspended. They prayed to Brahma to look upon them mercifully. So we get, I think, description of the spiritual sky of Vaikuntha, I think, through the eyes of the four Kumaras. So in the spiritual sky, the planets called Vaikuntha planets, because there's no anxiety, there's no birth, death, old age, and disease there, as well as no anxiety. So all residents are seemingly informed to the Lord that resides there, which is Lord Narayan. They all engage in devotional service to the Lord without any desires for sense gratification. So there's no need to work for a living there. And the pure goodness exists there. There is no envy amongst devotees in the spiritual world. The kingdom of God can only be understood by what is described in the Vedas. In the Vaikunta planets, the trees, fruits, flowers, and so on, and plant animals are all completely spiritual. The trees are desire trees. I've read about this in one of the Bhagavad-Gita. So there is no actual difference between the tree, the animal, or the man. Everything is not only conscious, but everything is Krishna conscious. So, in the Vaikunta planets, all the inhabitants fly in their own planes, along with their consorts, and they chant the glories of the Lord. So there are millions and billions of spiritual planets in a spiritual sky. One can only enter the kingdom of the Supreme Lord only if they have developed the desirable qualities. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the 26 desirable qualities listed there, and also in, I think, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, chapter 25, verse 21, the qualities of the saintly person mentioned. So, from the four Kumaras enter the spiritual sky, I think they feel unprecedented happiness when they reach Vaikuntha. So after passing through 6 gates of Vaikuntapuri, the Lord's residence, they come across 2 dormant Amrid maces at the 7th gate. 2 dormant block them from going any further to the kingdom of God. So because the Kumaras are self-realized, such saintly persons should not have been blocked. The Kumaras came to the conclusion that they had to be impostors and cursed them and to be sent back to the material world where criminals are allowed to reside. So I think we got to there. So yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions. You know, when they say all a similar form, do they all have the same face as well, facial features?
Yeah, they look exactly the same, and they all look like Narayan. This is the amazing thing. So how do they know who's who, and because they look exactly the same.
Well, and you know, once you get a body there in the vacant times, it's eternal. So I think, you know, we've got animals and trees there. So can one eternally become a tree or an animal there?
Yeah, I think it's like a type of rasa. You know, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's type of rasa. It's like shanta ras that they're all alive. Trees are alive, and the rivers are alive. Everything, flowers are alive. They have like a distance relationship with the Lord. They don't interact like the other residents. It's like it's just a different type of rasa they acquired.
Once you're liberated from here, can you become a tree or animal there, or do you get the?
Yeah, there's like the 5 types of the ras, and this is one of them, I guess. That is like this is shant ras that you just have not a direct interaction as a friend, as a lover or a parent or a servant. You just have a shant ras from the distance. Does that make sense, Ru?
And you know, I'd assume, you know, if somebody's liberated, they'd want to, you know, have the human form rather than become a tree or animal. Although they're all just,
Yeah, I know, I know. I don't know the exact. We can check. I don't know the exact philosophy on this, but I do remember some conversation a while back on this, and this is what all I remember is that is one of the rasas that we have. I think, well, you know, in the spiritual world, everything's absolute. So there is no big or small, anything like that. You know, there's no service that is better than any other service. Everything's absolute in the spiritual world. So those entities are happy in that situation. That's their role. We all have a role. We have, so because as we develop our pure devotion, we discover what our role is. Are we what is our rasa? Are we a friend? Are we a servant? Are we a parent? Or is it conjugal love? We are all given this role, and we are happy in that role. So that's all I can say without guessing. But as far as I know, we are happy in the role that we have. This is our relationship with the Lord, and every relationship is good. We're happy in it, and it's eternal. If you want it to be, it's eternal. But there has to be variety. We can't be all just lovers. We can't be all just parents. We can't be all just friends. There has to be variety. You want to add anything? So, Jay Prabhu, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, but you can check. I'm sure there's information on that. But this is all I know. That they're happy in the ras. There's different rases, and this is one of the ras, and people are happy being in that situation.
I mean, I want to ask, Randa, who's been on Sunday Sangers. He asked him, whether one is born as a male or female, and he said it is depending on the service you do. So that's all I know.
Yeah. It's. I haven't really checked up on too much on this, but yeah, it's a big subject and a very good question, though. Yeah, about because we seem to hear about everybody looks like Narayan, so which makes it seem like there's only males there, doesn't it? From what we just read, that yeah, it's a good point, and that obviously there's females there. We are actually mentioned that we're all gopis, and that's in Goloka. We are all females, and only Krishna is the male. Eternally, we spirit soul. We are female compared to Lord Krishna himself. He is only Purusha. So yeah, it's a big philosophy. Uh, we can try and find out about it, or we can just be devoted to Krishna. Because like there's an example given. I mean, it's nice to know, obviously nice to know, but how much can we know? How much can we know? There's an example given that if a mosquito bites you, do you find out which mosquito bit you, or do you do something about the fact that it's giving you malaria or nowadays dengue fever? So we are trying to fix our existing problem, which is that we are, for some reason, in this material world, we have done something wrong. We have personal desires, and we don't have love for Krishna. We need to develop that love and go back. Our rasa will be revealed as we advance, and we just need to go back. What rasa we have, we'll find out later on, and we'll be happy with that rasa. But if you want to find that information, there's no harm, and it's all good. But I'm saying that there is so much information that we don't know, and we need to know. I mean, there's so much information on the different of the different planets, of the different universes, of the stages. So much information in the spiritual world, and how all the incarnations come about. There's so much to learn. So yeah, if you can learn, that's all good. But our main priority is that we want to serve Krishna, make him love him, and make him love us. That is what we need to do. That's our main priority. So thank you so much, Jai Prabhu, for your question. I don't know if Praveen Mataji is able to unmute at the moment. Okay, we'll go to Sarveshriya Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna to everybody.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Well, there is no difference between Krishna or Narayana and his abode. He's absolute. That's why there is called absolute because there's no difference between him and his appearances, everything. And his abode is eternal. One who goes there never comes back. Everyone is in mode of pure goodness, not goodness, pure goodness, that means transcendental. This material universe is temporary, it is created and inherited again and again, and is cause of repeated birth and death. Krishna is cause of all causes. Brahma says himself, Ishvara Parma Krishna Sachidan Vigra Anadir Adir Govind Sakaran Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. And the description of his abode, Krishna himself says in Bhagavad-Gita, Natadbhaste Suryo na Shashanko na Pauka ed Gatva na Nidvantate Dadhamam Paramam Mama. That supreme abode of man is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. As I said, it is all eternal. And this nice description, the Brahma gives, or he says, after doing tapasya for 1,000 years, and he's seen the abode of Narayana, and he describes in Brahma Samhita so many beautiful verses. One of the verses is Chintamani Prakara Sadmasu Kadriksha Laksavidesur Surabhi Labi Palantam Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sabram Samham Aham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending cows surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis. Lord Sri Chaitanya, when he was teaching to Sanatan Goswami, I was reading and I found a nice page. He described the spiritual sky. And he said the spiritual planets are also known as Vaikuntha planets. The universe of the material creation have a limited length and breadth. But as far as the Vaikuntha planets are concerned, there is no limitation to the dimensions because they are spiritual. Lord Chaitanya informed Sanatan Goswami that the length and breadth of each and every Vaikuntha planet is millions and billions of miles. Each of these planets is unlimited, expanded, and each and every one of them, there are residents who are full in all 6 appliances: wealth, strength, knowledge, beauty, fame, and renunciation. In each and every one of these Vaikuntha planets, an expansion of Krishna has his eternal abode, and Krishna himself has his original eternal abode called Krishna Lok or Golok Vrindavan. So this is all spiritual. This Vaikuntha is in the spiritual sky, and the top is the Krishna Lok or Golok.
Thank you, Andri.
We cannot see the kingdom of God, but without materialize. But we can see by revelation as described by the disciplic succession, and we have to believe in Guru, Sadhu, and scriptures. And everybody's got the same features in Vaikuntha. How we can recognize Vishnu from the other form, because all got 4 ends. We can recognize by Sri Vats and the Kaustav Mani, because only Vishnu got that. Is that Sri Vatsa is the white curly hair on his chest, and Kaustav Mani he got. None the other, all the features they have, but none of them got that. That's how he can recognize Lord Vishnu. So this is little bit description of kingdom of God, and then how these Kumaras went in that Vaikuntha. Might be we'll discuss probably next week. So this That's what I got today. Thank you very much.
So, do you know, Mataji, because it mentions that everybody looks like Narayan. So, Jay Prabhu's question is, what about the females? Is there any females in
Yeah,
Vaikuntha?
Lakshmi, lot of Lakshmis there.
So, they all look like Lakshmi?
They all look like Lakshmi. They all Lakshmi. There's millions and millions of Lakshmis there, and all the features have got except Srivats and cost of money that Lord Narayana have. None the other ones his associates have this. That's how we can recognize. They can recognize that he's Narayana.
So, how do they recognize Lakshmi? If they all look like Lakshmi, Mataji, do you know?
Oh, well, I don't know how the Lakshmis are Lakshmis. They've got all the features. They've got all the opulence. So they said they are Lakshmis. They say Krishna.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, see what they say that Narayan is served by so many Lakshmis. He's served by so
Yeah.
many Lakshmis.
Only Lakshmi is saved. That's how we can know it's Lakshmi. Nobody else. Only Lakshmis. They will always be the Narayana. Lakshmi
Yes.
is always Narayana.
Yes.
Because associated, they associate of Narayana, Lakshmi Narayan.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you all. Shall we do a couple of rounds? Because it's a very big topic. There's so much to learn. We're all learning together. And thank you for your wonderful questions. Sorry, I'm not always to answer them all because there's so much information and I don't always have it. I think sometimes we just need to maybe learn together and do some homework and check on these things. And so we have Sveshi Mataji, who's our senior Vaishnava, and she has a lot of knowledge as well, and the things we can find out from her. So thank you all so much. And let's do a couple of rounds. We'll start with Sveshi Mataji, and then Rukmini Mataji, please do the second round. Hare Krishna.
Nama Om Vishnu